Today, we are diving into a really fascinating story from a meditator named Vilas Karival. He had this big aha moment that sent him down a rabbit hole into the neuroscience of why our minds get, so stuck in these stressful loops. And more importantly, how we can actually break free.
For Vilas, it all kicked off with these 4 words. He realized his mind was just constantly caught in these patterns, always comparing himself to others, acting on these weird compulsions, feeling driven by competition all the time, and then over-compromising just to avoid any kind of conflict. And, if we're being honest, a lot of us probably see ourselves in that list, right?
So that's the big question, isn't it? Why do we do this to ourselves? Well, to get to the real answer, we can't just look at our surface-level behaviors. We've got to pop the hood and look at our brain's background operating system. The part that's running the whole show when we're not even paying attention. All right, let's get into it.
So first up, we're going to meet the star of our show. It's a part of your brain that is responsible for all of that mental chatter, all the replaying of old conversations, and the constant daydreaming. It's called the default mode network.
The best way to think of the DMN is as your brain's autopilot. So this thing kicks in the second you're not laser focused on a task. And it just loves to think about you, your past, your future, all your worries. When it gets overactive, it's like a radio station that's stuck on a loop, just playing the same old stressful songs again and again and again.
So how exactly does this autopilot system keep us tangled up in those 4 C's we mentioned? Well, it all comes down to brain chemistry, really. There are a few key neurochemicals that are basically pouring fuel on these habits.
Let's start with comparison. When you're scrolling through social media and you see someone's highlight reel, your brain has 2 basic reactions. If you feel like you come out on top, like you win the comparison, you get a little hit of dopamine, that reward chemical. But if you feel like you lose, your brain pumps out the stress hormone, cortisol. And it's this chemical push and pull that just locks that habit of constantly measuring yourself against everyone else.
And then there's compulsion. Think about it, a lot of those compulsive things we do, checking our phone for the 10th time in a minute, stress eating, they're often just our brain's clumsy way of trying to deal with stress or anxiety. The DMN fires up these old patterns, dopamine rewards them, and boom, you've got a habit loop that's incredibly hard to break. So it feels like you're fixing something, but you're really just feeding the beast.
The drive to compete, that's wired into us pretty deep. Winning something floods our brain with dopamine, which makes us want to do it again. But here's the flip side, the fear of losing. That fear spikes our cortisol and can keep us locked in this stressful, constant battle mode, whether it's at the office or just in our own heads.
Okay, now this one's a little sneaky. Compromise is a good thing, right? Well, it can turn into a trap when it's just driven by a deep fear of what other people think. Our brain releases oxytocin, the bonding hormone, to help us connect. But when we start over-compromising just to avoid that cortisol spike that comes from a potential argument, we end up completely losing track of what we actually want or need.
So this really just breaks it all down, doesn't it? You've got these 2 very different ways your mind can operate. On one side, you've got the overactive DMN. That's the mind on autopilot, just reacting to stress and cravings. And on the other side, you've got the calm mind, which is all about being present, feeling content, and actually making conscious choices. The whole game really is figuring out how to get from column A to column B.
All right, so that's the problem. How do we actually get there? How do we grab the steering wheel back from this autopilot? Well, let's get into the solution. There's this really specific ancient meditation practice called jhana, and it's designed to systematically quiet that default mode network.
Jhana meditation is basically a step-by-step process for getting into a state of deep focus. And what's so cool is that each stage physically shifts your brain chemistry. It starts with the first jhana, which tackles stress by lowering cortisol and boosting GABA, your brain's main chill-out chemical. Then you move on to increasing contentment with serotonin and endorphins. The third jhana deepens that calm with oxytocin, and it all leads to a state of bliss, supported by this incredible molecule called anandamide, which we're going to talk a lot more about.
Okay, and this table here just lays it all out so clearly. Look at the direct link. In that first jhana stage, you start to reduce all that rumination, which lowers your dopamine and cortisol, and what does that do? It weakens those compulsive thoughts. Then you get to the second stage, your mind wanders less, you get a boost of serotonin, and suddenly the need to compare and compete just starts to dissolve. It's this amazing cascade effect all the way down to the fourth jhana, where the DMN can go totally silent. You get a complete break from those draining habits.
Okay, so that final stage of jhana, it's all about this one super powerful brain chemical,
It's so central to this whole process that it totally deserves its own section. They actually call it the bliss molecule, and for good reason.
So, let's talk about anandamide. The name literally comes from the Sanskrit word for bliss, ananda. It's part of your body's endocannabinoid system, which is kind of like the system that cannabis works on, except this is the stuff your own body makes naturally. Your brain produces it on demand to help you feel relaxed and happy. It's your brain's built-in off switch for anxiety. And the best part? You can actually learn to make more of it.
And the cool thing is, it's not just about deep meditation. There are a bunch of other really practical, everyday things you can do to get more of this stuff. You know that runner's high? Yeah, that's largely anandamide. Eating a bit of dark chocolate, taking a cold shower, getting totally lost in a creative project, or just having a good deep laugh with a friend, all of these things can help boost this incredible molecule.
So what this all means is that you have this amazing toolkit, right? You've got all these different options. Whether it's meditation, exercise, or just getting into that flow state with the hobby you love, all these roads lead to the same beautiful place, more anandamide, and a much quieter default mode network. It's simple, really. More bliss, less autopilot.
All right, so we've talked about all the things we can do to quiet the mind. Now, let's talk about something we might need to stop doing. Turns out there's one really common daily habit that's actively working against this whole process. Yep, it's caffeine. I know, that morning cup of coffee that feels absolutely essential. It might actually be keeping your brain's stressful autopilot running on full blast. Caffeine literally stimulates the DMN. It reinforces those dopamine craving cycles, and it jacks up your cortisol, all the things we're trying so hard to calm down.
But hey, don't despair. You don't have to give up your warm morning ritual. There are some really amazing alternatives out there. Teas like lion's mane can give you focus without those jitters. Ashwagandha and tulsi actually help lower cortisol, and chamomile boosts those calming brain chemicals. These things can actually support your goal instead of fighting against it.
So at the end of the day, all of this comes down to one thing: awareness. Just knowing that your brain's autopilot is running right now, playing the old tapes, running the old programs. But you know what? It doesn't have to be the one in the driver's seat. This whole journey just starts with one simple question. Are you ready to take back the controls?